Record. Well, very nice to see you, Lynn. Can you tell me your name and how you spell it?
It's Lindal Graf, Lindalgraf.
And today is January 3rd, 2025. Lynn, let's start off with what year were you born in and where were you born?
1941 in Los Angeles.
Wow. So you're are you 83?
Yeah.
Wow, you don't look it. Good job. I'm 73.
All
I
right.
figured you were about my age. Um, Well, tell me about what cities you've lived in and any thoughts about those cities.
So this is kind of funny because I've lived in a lot of cities,
Okay, good.
but it Carpinteria is the longest that I've ever stayed in one city. But I was born in Los Angeles and actually in LA over Riverside Drive by Griffith Park. Then my folks bought a home out in the San Fernando Valley in North Hollywood, so we lived there. Um, and then my dad was in the army during the war. Then when he got discharged, we moved back to Missouri to live on the family farm. So we moved to Billings, Missouri, and then I lived in Springfield, Missouri, Sedalia, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, Wichita, Kansas, Ponca City, Oklahoma, and then when they decided they wanted to come back to California, so we came back to California in 1950 and lived again in North Hollywood in various apartments, and then various other communities in the San Fernando Valley, Canoga Park, Pacoima, Northridge, Van Nuys, and I would say moving around like that, I used to kid my mother and say we must be gypsies the way we move. So by the time I graduated high school, I'd been to 13 schools.
Wow. Um, well, what was your favorite city other than Carpinteria?
Well, the last one we lived in up in Northern California, Karen and I then lived in Auburn. And Auburn is right in the foothills there outside of Sacramento toward Lake Tahoe. And it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. She really had to do a lot of talking to get me to move. I used to say I gave up pine trees and snow for palm trees and sand.
And why did she want to move here? It may be obvious, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I was taking early retirement from Allstate, and so she was a claims manager, and she said, "You think now, we could move to Carpinteria?" And it was made sense because every holiday, every 3-day weekend, and any time we had off, we were driving down to Carpinteria, so it made sense. So it's hard to believe we've been here over 25 years now already.
Nice. What did your family farm back east?
But my grandfather had 80 acres, and they farmed hay and oats, and then part of their acreage was apples. So they had a small apple orchard, and they had strawberries, and they would have pickers come in, and so my job was to pick strawberries. But by the time I turned my basket in, I owed them money because they ate all the strawberries.
Oh, wow. Okay. Uh, and that's kind of backbreaking work, isn't it?
It is. Um, Now, given that when we moved back there, I was like 5, 6 years old, but and I think back on what I did and how much I did. It's hard to believe that I was doing what I was doing at that age. I was out in the fields during thrashing time, and I was up on a wagon throwing shocks of hay into the thresher, and didn't think anything of it. We had a pond on the farm, so I'd go with a hook and a cork and a worm and go fishing with a bamboo pole. So, and I went to the same school my father did, in a little two-room schoolhouse. Each row was a grade. Like if you were in row 3, you were in the 3rd grade. I was in row 1. I was in 1st grade. And in the wintertime, there's no buses picking you up on the farm. We walked to school. It's about a mile and a half in the snow.
Wow.
And so I got a touch of that life, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Hmm.
I don't think I'd want to make a living at farming, but it was fun for a young kid.
Nice. And tell me what jobs you've had. You worked for Allstate?
Well, I worked for Allstate, yeah, for 29 years, and
Allstate Insurance. And what did you do?
yeah, I had various management positions, district sales manager. I was a zone training and development manager for the 13 Western states. I was up in my office was in Palo Alto, and I lived in Cupertino, and and so just various, and my last one was uh, up in the regional office in Sacramento doing um, special projects.
Hmm. And and what other jobs have you had?
Um, I was this is kind of a funny story. I When I was in high school, I started to work for. We had a Piggly Wiggly 2 blocks away from us, so I started working in Piggly Wiggly as a box boy. And
And is a
that's
Piggly Wiggly a
Piggly Wiggly Market.
uh-huh.
They're mostly known down south, in the south. But there was 5 stores out in the San Fernando Valley, and I lived 2 blocks away from one, so I got a job as a box boy. And then later on, I got promoted to a printer, an apprentice, and that's where you instead of packing the groceries, I was checking people out. I was a checker, and so I went in the Navy, and when I came out, my job was waiting for me, so I went back to working in the grocery store, and then the Piggly Wiggly was sold to Continental Markets. And Continental, by that time, I was the liquor department manager, and so Continental came in and they hired all the managers because they wanted their own managers. So I went to work part time at Hughes Market. Hughes Market was a big chain in the Valley, Southern California, and as a in the liquor department. And it was kind of funny. One of my liquor salesmen, who I had when I was managing the liquor department for Piggly Wiggly, came in and he says, "Man," he says, "Hey, we're hiring people. We need salesmen for the liquor salesman. So you ought to interview." So I did, and I got the job. So I
Hmm.
was my territory was Glendale, Burbank, Eagle Rock, over in that area, toward Pasadena. And so I was telling one of my accounts on Foothill Boulevard there in Burbank. I said, "Well, I won't be seeing you anymore because I had taken the job as a liquor salesman, but it was like, well, where do I go from here?" So I said, I want to be a distillery rep. Distillery rep, all you do is go around to bars and restaurants and shake people's hand because they're drinking Jack Daniels and offer to buy them a drink. So I thought, wow, that's really got to be cool. Of course, now you got to remember I was only 20 some years old. So I was telling this store owner, I says, "Well, I won't be seeing you anymore. I'm going to go to work for uh, Jack Daniels as a distillery rep." And I gave him all the details. And this guy was buying a pack of cigarettes standing there off to the side. He heard me talking and he said, "You know, I hear you're changing jobs. I just heard your conversation. And he says, how would you like to have a company car, expense account, and unlimited income? And I said, oh yeah, I'm doing what? And he says, well, here's my card. My office is across the street. If you're interested, come on over. So he left, and the guy that owned the liquor store said, hey, Lynn, you ought to go. He says, you ought to go talk to him. They cash their paychecks in here. They make pretty good money. So I did. I went across the street out of curiosity. And what's so funny is Allstate had just canceled my insurance uh, because of an accident. I loaned my car to somebody and he totaled it out. So I did think, I'll go see and check it out. So I did, and the rest is history. They hired me. I spent 30 years there.
Huh, what do you know? So, is there a lesson to that story? You never know where things will come from, or
Exactly. Don't prejudge anything. You know, I think that's, one of your questions is about that. And I would say, yeah, don't prejudge anything. If you have the will and the faith that you in yourself, it's a cliche, but it's so true. You can accomplish a lot of things that you thought, if you think you can't do it, you can't. So,
well, that's a good lesson. Um, and what? So you've been a salesman, I guess, much of your life. What aspects of you help you be a good salesman, would you say?
well, one of the most important things is to be a good listener. You know, don't don't do all the talking. Let your client do the talking. If you let them do the talking, they will tell you in the course of a conversation what they want and what their needs are, and that's what you want to zero in on. Whatever it is, whether it's a bottle of wine or a auto policy, that's the same thing. It's uh, I used to, when I was out in the zone, I was the head of the training department for the whole 13 Western states and Hawaii and Alaska. And I would tell new recruits, I said, ask questions and just shut up. They'll tell you. And we used to record video presentations, the students, so they could see themselves in action. And I got a kick out of this one guy one time. We were videoing him, and I was his customer, and he says, well, in his mind he said, oh, I want to give this guy the choice clothes, and he says, would you like to pay for this out of your checkbook or mine? I said, well, let's try your checkbook. And I told him, everybody in the class laughed. And I said, you just picked the wrong checkbook. It's not, it's not yours or his. It's his or some other insurance companies, whatever the deal was, I forgot.
That's good. I know one job you had of your many, I guess, was being in charge of the Chamber of Commerce here in Carpinteria.
Right.
Well, what were some of the issues in Carpinteria at the time?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I thoroughly enjoyed uh, working at the chamber. Um, and I was there 9 years, and boy, it went by fast. But as as you can probably recall, the issues constantly in carpentry is growth. What kind of growth, and you know, and all that. And what I enjoyed is the people that are opposing to it. Some of them, they were very willing to listen. You have a conversation instead of just blurting out no growth, and that's the end of this discussion. Maybe there's a choice. Maybe there's a choice project that's better than one that may be put down our throat by the government. you know. So if the choice is either two forms of growth, A and B, and A is the one that looks really nice, then you should support it. Don't just turn them away because anyway.
Well, that makes sense. I moved here in 91 to Carpinteria, and I've seen a lot of people that after they move here, they say, no more growth. Now that I'm,
Right. They shut the door.
yeah, right. And it's a good point. You have to choose, what are the options, and businesses need to thrive. What any thoughts about being a business person in Carpinteria? It must not be easy in a small town.
Well, what was not making any sense to me is why, uh, and I'm not too familiar with the city council now like I was when I was with the chamber of, we were very in tune, but um, you know, um, why they're so adamant about it and don't want, I remember going to the council and trying to uh, um, sell the idea that the chamber would make a better tourism department of the city than what you're doing, what we're doing now. And I said, up in Santa Barbara, the city of Santa Barbara pays their um, tourist bureau $1 million a year, and you're giving us $10,000. And I for and I had did my homework, and I figured out a program, and it would cost 80,000 a year. And you know, and so to answer your question, there's businesses, there's hotels, there's restaurants, there's grocery stores, all benefit by having people here to shop. You know, I don't think just by the size of our real estate here, I mean the property, that we could have a lot of growth, but I mean there are a few places where we could have done a little better. I thought uh, the bluffs thing. I was pleased with the results, but there didn't have to be all the name calling in the process. I guess you know. I think their end result was fine. Anyway, you conjure up my yesteryears.
Yeah. Well, one thing about history I find interesting is when the bluffs were purchased, the argument was made that we need to have a section of the Carpinteria Bluffs open to open space, and then because the rest of the bluffs will be developed, and then more recently, when tea time was proposed for a development, everybody said, well, why we don't want development on the bluffs, and they didn't know the history of it, but so be it.
Well, and see, that's my point. I mean, that's a very good point. I thought, and I just saw one presentation. He came to our Rotary Club and they made a presentation, and I thought, that is very thoughtful. I mean, how they were going to have small units, and they were going to have gardens, and they were just going to be really good stewards of the land. And I think 60%, maybe might have been more of their development going to remain open space. And and this is my point. Do we turn something down like that could be really not attraction, in light of, I don't know if it's the state or the county wants to develop that for low income housing? So to me, that doesn't make any sense. I'd rather have a project that we could have some say so about, and be not as impactful as these high-rise, low-income housings that make us look like East Germany. Anyway,
Yeah, interesting. Let's see, moving along. Can you describe some of your family members, like what your mom and dad were like, and any of your current family members? And,
Sure.
and this video, might be for future generations of Grafs to see, who came before them. But anyway, yeah.
You got to move up here first. My youngest brother lives in Agora Hills, so he's the closest that I have.
Gotcha.
Uh, my other brother, who lived back in Louisiana, Phil, he passed away, but he left a legacy. His oldest son, went to LSU bar, and law. He's an attorney. He got in a firm down in Lafayette, and or maybe it's Baton Rouge. He's the youngest attorney in that firm, and he's the youngest attorney who ever went before the Louisiana Supreme Court and argued a case and won. And I just got a text from my brother's wife that he just became partner in this firm at 3 years. And the earliest anybody prior to that ever became a partner in the law firm was 4 years.
Eh,
So he's done really well.
Well, what's his name and what's your brother's name?
His name is Philip John Graf, and so we call him PJ. And my brother was Philip John Graf.
Uh,
But it was John Philip, and then there was Philip John.
Good.
And so, and then my youngest brother, who I said lives in Agora Hills, he he went to SC on a football scholarship, and this was back in the late '60s, and he was on the SC team that beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl,
Hmm.
and back in I think it was '72, somewhere right around there. And so while he was on the football team, they got offered to be a background in a Walt Disney movie about a donkey that kicks field goals. So my brother liked us so much that the stunt coordinator on the film asked him, would you like, some more work? And he said, yeah. So my brother started in doing stunt work right out of college. Well, I shouldn't say right out. He did have a stint with the Rams, and he had 2 years with that new World Football League that started
Hmm.
with the Portland Storm, and then he finally just hung it up and he started doing stunts, and so he has been doing that ever since. And he's a stunt coordinator and a second unit director, and he's waiting. I check with him every other day. He's waiting to hear because he's got a film they want him to direct the whole thing. So I kind of hoping that he gets it because that'll probably be his last project. He's 8 years younger than me, and uh, all two of his boys played football at SC. His daughter was a cheerleader at SC, and his youngest son played 5 years in the NFL. Played with Atlanta Falcons and Philadelphia Eagles. And he's got a Super Bowl ring. So, and he's retired out of football. So 5 years is good, especially for he was an offensive lineman. You know, football is really beating these guys up. Anyway,
How's he doing now?
he's doing all right.
Does he have last?
He's gone into stunts now. His oldest son,
Huh.
and then his daughter is married to a real estate agent, and they live over in Thousand Oaks. And so, and then let's see who else we have. My family. Well, then the rest of them is the wealthies. It's Karen's side of the family. My I had an aunt and uncle and cousins who lived up in Grass Valley, which is outside of Sacramento. And that's why we moved up there, because I really always liked that area. But my aunt and uncle passed away, and my cousin's husband passed away, and I don't see him much anymore because they're still up in Grass Valley. So see, oh, then of course we have Lauren. Lauren is a grew up right here in Carpinteria, born and raised right here, graduated from Cal Lutheran um, a few years ago, and she's working for the Ventura County um, Foundation.
Hmm.
And
So
she's
she's
there.
living in the area still, huh?
Well, ironically, she lives up in Bellevue, Washington.
Oh, huh.
They couldn't afford any housing around here, so they went on a trip just to check out housing, and they decided they liked Bellevue, Washington, so they moved up there. And the company she works for, they approved her work because she worked out of her house a lot anyway. They didn't care, and all she does is they fly her in once a quarter for meetings. But she does everything on the computer because she does all her PR stuff, all her advertising, and she organizes programs that they put on for the community. So she's doing pretty well for herself. She just got married this past August.
Congratulations.
And my daughter, who lives in Colorado Springs, has our only grandson, and thank goodness he just got over being in the hospital with the flu that's going around. But he was running like 105 fever, and they were really worried about him there for a while.
Hmm.
But he seems to be okay.
And your wife, Karen, how did you meet her and tell me about her? Is she listening?
Yes, dear. What do you say? Uh, I met her, believe it or not, I was a territorial manager and my office was in Camarillo. And so um, our main office was up in Sacramento. And so I was the southernmost territory. And so we were just opening up this new territory, getting realignment and everything. And so she had just come on board as a management trainee. And so they sent her over to me to work with me because we were organizing this new territory. So that's where I met her, and she was working up out of Sacramento region already, and so I was here, and I went through a divorce, and then uh, they they transferred me up to Sacramento to work on a special project for a whole new sales program that the company introduced, and they wanted me to help organize the whole program, which I went up and did. And so we met up in Sacramento
Okay, and
at Allstate.
oh,
And her dad's an Allstate agent, her brother's an Allstate agent. I was an Allstate manager, she was an Allstate manager. And can't you see the lot of fun conversations we have around the dinner table?
well, I thought her dad owns a flower nursery, right?
Yeah,
That was later.
he retired from Allstate, and his son took over his book of business, and so he's the one lone wolf still with Allstate. Is Alan Welty, and then Mark Welty, their youngest brother, is up in Roseville, California, and he's a teacher.
And I know from just personal knowledge, your wife Karen's quite an accomplished lady.
Yes,
She's very quite the mover and shaker here in Carpinteria.
she was wanting. Oh, she was getting a lot of people wanting her to run for city council. And she said, no, she just plate was full, and she really, is one of the driving forces for this new organization that they formed to take over our community awards banquet. And she really wants to make that up and shining. So I don't think she wants to take on too many other things yet. You never say never.
Well, well, and back to lessons learned. I guess you never say never. Is that a lesson you learned in life? And are there
Uh, you know, to be honest with you, retirement was probably the worst job I've ever had.
huh,
Um, when you're, like yourself, Larry, you're busy, you're doing what you're doing, and you're trying, put things together and projects and come up with ideas on selling your product, and then all of a sudden you don't have anything. I would get up and get dressed and then stay the car. I don't know where I'm going. Oh, I'm retired. But so what I did for another 10 years was myself and three others, we started a consulting business. And that's when I finally left the chamber. Uh, and we were down in the Oxnard Towers. We're up on the 22nd floor. We had one of our clients was uh, Houston Oil, and they had the whole floor, almost the whole floor on the 22nd floor, and they were closing it down. So they said, "Hey, you guys want this? You just come and take it." They left all the furniture there and everything. So we were like, "Great, this is great." And we had um, we did public affairs and governmental affairs based on our background and who we knew and stuff like that. So we had a good run there for a while, and then 2008 hit, and the bottom dropped out. So one of our members ran for state assembly, Jeff Gorell, down in Thousand Oaks, and he won. Took another partner as his local uh, consultant or whatever they call them. And so there was just two of us left, and we were sitting there staring at each other. He said, "Okay, Fred, I'm going to really retire now." But it was a good time while it lasted.
sounds like it. Do you have any words of wisdom for young people, maybe in their 20s or late teens, of how to get ahead in life, to be happy or to do well?
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, be a very good listener. Um, and one thing that I used to tell, especially managers that would be having problems with some of the folks that were under them, I said, I said, you don't have to order people to do stuff. You know, I said, if you just treat these guys or these girls or these people, these employees, like you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. I said, you can't go wrong. You're and you don't have to feel like you're giving orders. And then, once you get to that point where you're maybe changing your approach and stuff, a lot of times they say, Larry, if you were doing this, what would you do? How would you deal with it? I got more positive information for just, remember that program, uh, Managing by Walking Around, a few years ago? And I kind of took that at heart. I would just walk around, and the people I manage, I would just ask them questions and shut up and say what's on their mind.
Hmm. So I guess that advice is don't over dictate to people, allow them to take the initiative and have some buy-in to it.
Exactly. See, if it's their story, if it's their deal, and you've said okay, go for it. They're going to make it work. They're not going to, or if it doesn't work, they're not going to sit back and blame somebody else because it was their deal. You know, and I started the years ago. I helped starting the Interact Club at the high school, and we started out with just a few, and I would have that conversation with students, and I had a few times parents come and thank me down the road. So that's gratifying when you do that.
Hmm, that makes sense. Any other pieces of advice for young people to get ahead?
I don't pick up any wooden nickels.
That's a good one always.
Which, I don't know why people used to tell me that, and I was like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, that's funny.
I still don't know what it means, but wooden nickels don't buy you much, I guess. Um, I like what's happening down on Linden in town, and I just hope a couple of these will get approved and we get them, and then I would say it's great. We have a nice downtown. But I during the holidays I did some walking in and out of some of the stores just to see how they were doing, and it seemed like they were busy, but they were still struggling because it's a big hit to shut stuff down for so long and then try to fire them up.
Yeah.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, good deal. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about food. Um, what's been some of your favorite foods to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And what do you eat now?
Um, I like Mexican food. We eat a lot of Mexican food. Karen likes to make Mexican food. Um, I'm not real picky on what I eat. Uh, I like from my German heritage. I like sauerkraut. And I like some of the German foods. And when we've traveled over to Germany, that I tell you, there's some food that's just awesome. And that's true in probably every country. But I uh, I I go to Weight Watchers, and I try to stay at where I'm at. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm just trying to maintain. Um, so the Weight Watcher program doesn't dictate what you have to eat. What what they offer you as a way to you score it, and you just try to stay on in and around that point system, and you'll be all right. You'll lose weight. It's guaranteed. So the for breakfast, I'll have I make myself a protein shake, and then I might have I like those raisin cinnamon biscuits. What do you call them? Yeah,
Rolls of some
so
sort? Yeah,
yeah, bagel. Yeah, the raisin cinnamon bagel. That's
gotcha.
with a protein drink. And then for lunch, I'll have maybe a burrito or some soup. And dinner makes dinner, and we'll have like the other nights you got chicken marsala. We'll have some nights we'll just have cheese and crackers, and some nights we'll have a full-on meal. So it just depends on what we feel like.
So the back
I'm
to the
I'm I'm just a, didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not a foodie. I'm person.
yeah.
I used to say I eat to live. I don't live to eat. I mean, I can take it or leave it, But unfortunately, we have to eat to live.
Well, the point system sounds good. I just had some peanut brittle earlier and I considered briefly, should I have it? Why not? But I guess if I was doing some type of point system, I might be able to rationalize it better, saying, well, I didn't have that good.
Correct.
Yeah.
But what I'll tell you, WW Weight Watchers have come a long way because they have they really in their labs or wherever they've come up with these ideas. You know, before beef was, oh, you didn't want to eat a lot of beef. Now they're saying, oh, you can eat beef, 0 points. If you do it this way, or maybe fix it a certain way. But yeah, they don't tell you what to eat. Their program is not to tell you what to eat. Their program is make you aware of what you eat, be aware of your portions. If somebody just watch their portions and drink water during the day, drink enough water, that they would lose weight.
And if someone wanted to use Weight Watchers, do you just look up where they are in your community and go to a meeting?
Yeah. And if you want to go to one, you can come as my guest.
Okay, well, maybe sometime I'll consider that. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
And to switch gears again, what were some of the big news events in your lifetime and any thoughts about them?
Oh, yeah. Uh, the first one that popped into my head was I was still in high school. As a matter of fact, it was January 31st, 1957, I think. And that was at that time that was report card day. So we go into a class or each class and give the teacher our report card, and then we just kind of hang around until she got through writing it down and giving it back to us. So San Fernando is an old school. I mean, it was old then. It's really old now. But it had these windowsills. And so my buddy and I were sitting there, we're just chit-chatting, sitting on the windowsill looking out and talking. And all of a sudden we see these two planes run into each other up in the sky. This big fireball. And so we said, wow, do you see that? And we go, yeah. So it looked like it was just uh, where San Fernando High School is, and there's one of those storm drains, and then on the other side was a drive-in restaurant theater, the Laurel Canyon, Laurel Drive-In. And so it looked like it was just right over there. So that would just be at the end of our football field. So we said, hey, let's go and check it out. And so we left, climbed over the fence because the gate was locked, and we went down. And anyway, it actually had crashed in Pacoima Junior High. And that's where I graduated from, junior high. And Air Force jet, ran head on into another Air Force plane, DC-3 or something. And we get down there, and I was in the Boy Scouts, and in our troop, if you were old enough, you could be a civil defense uh, volunteer. And so I got down to the entrance to the school, and they said, no, you can't go in. I said, there's my civil defense man. They said, oh, go on in. They need you over at the office. They had just sounded the recess bell for the kids to come off the field. Luckily, only 2 kids got killed, but had it been 5 minutes earlier, there was 220 kids out on that field. And what I had to do was take blankets out because there were about 70 other kids that were injured. It was horrific. I came up to a friend of mine and I was saying hi, and he was, saying he got hit by something, and the whole back of his head looked like he took an iron to it. Just anyway, so that was my first real.
Did that experience, how did that experience affect you afterwards? And was it useful in any way to have experienced
I
it?
don't think that one was because they did nothing to be in harm's way, uh, and I guess that's what I learned about in the military. You could have two people experience the same incident, and one get really wiped out, and one goes free. Nothing.
Hmm.
And then another one, of course, another one was a JFK assassination. That I was taking a psych exam in college, and they announced it over the PA system, and our whole class just got up and walked out. I mean, people were just crying, and I'll just never forget that.
Hmm.
And you know, and I had another one. It was JFK. Oh, 911. Who
Oh,
could forget 911?
yeah. For those that don't know it, 200 years from now, what was 911?
That was that was one because it was still going when people were saying, "Go, you gotta go see this on the TV." And I turned the TV on just in time to see that second plane hit, and that was the most unbelievable thing I ever witnessed, via TV. That had to be.
And so it was terrorists crashing into the World Trade Center, and then they toppled the towers. And yeah, what else about that?
Yeah. And you look at these, how many first responders lost their lives, and how many are still residual from all the stuff they had to inhale. But geez, my hat's off to those families. Wow.
Yeah, sometimes people don't realize what first responders have to go through, but
Right.
they put their lives on the line.
They do. It was just like this shooting yesterday. They actually had, or no, day before in New Orleans, they actually had footage of these policemen running toward the gunshots. They were hearing the gunshots and they were running to them instead of away from them. You know, you just say, "Wow."
That's crazy.
I got what you got any? I got a one more last,
Yeah, please.
or a kind of my uh, closest I'll ever have gotten to being a professional musician or something. Um, when I see what my senior year. Well, first of all, you said something about what I want to be when I grow up,
Yeah.
and I always wanted to be make a career in the Navy because growing up myself and during World War II, all family members were always saying, "Oh, you got to go in the military. You got to go in the military." So, I wanted to go in. So but I wanted to be a pilot in the Navy, and so um, I went to school from the sixth grade through my. He was a year younger than me, but I went to school with Richie Valens,
Hmm.
and um, he was a good friend, and, and we had an organization in San Fernando called the 1319 Club, and there was a kids club sponsored by the 2030 Club, and so they'd have dances, and so we were, and this was in January. We were at the uh, dance the beginning of the month, and so the band was taking a break. So Rich and I was walking outside, and he was telling me about going on this tour, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds really really neat." Well, he said, "Yeah, but I don't like flying too much." And I says, "Well, that's going to be coming with the job." So anyway, he says, "Hey, I'm playing at the LA County Fairgrounds. Um, I think it was like on this Saturday or Sunday." He says, "Why don't you come out? I'll get you backstage." So I said, "Sure." So took a friend of mine's, because back then to get from San Fernando to Pomona, there was only one way, and that was foothill. There was no freeways then. So we drove over, and he left our names at the gate. And so we go in, and we were walking up the backstage, and they were there earlier just doing sound checks and stuff. And so the other singers on the menu were um, the Kingston Trio and Johnny Cash. So I got to meet, and then of course Richie Valens. So I got to meet Johnny Cash and the Kingston Trio. So while before the show started, this buddy of mine and I, we were walking around seeing the fair, and we came in this one area, and here was this huge recruiting booth for the Navy Air Reserve program. And I went over and I listened. I go, "Yeah, that sounds like really something I'd like to do." I want to. because I want to be a pilot. He said, well, you have to have 60 credits of college. He said, but they would probably defer you if you wanted to go to college and then go to NAVCAM and become a pilot. I says, that sounds like just the right thing for me. And so the reason I got in the Navy because I went to a Richie Valens concert.
So Richie Valens, he was a rock and roller, and how did he die?
Plane crash.
Yeah, plane crash.
He and the Big Bopper Buddy,
Buddy
what's his,
Holly.
Buddy Holly.
Huh.
Yeah, so that was sad.
Did you ever play music with Richie?
But that was funny. We were going to try to put a band around him. So they said, "Oh, we need this." We did. One of my buddies was going to play keyboard, and they said, "Why don't you play drums?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any drums." He said, so I went out and bought a used set of drums, and I was going to play drums. And it never happened. But I had that set of drums, and my next door neighbor, uh, their youngest son was really. He had started a little neighborhood garage band with his buddies. Matter of fact, they played at my wedding for at my first wedding, first marriage. Uh, so so I give him. I says, Kelly, here you can have my drums. I'm not going to ever need them again. And so time passes and time passes, and um, his older brother, who was a friend of mine, he says, "Hey, Kelly's in this band." And I go, "Well, that's great." He says, "Yeah, they're called the Night Rangers." And so I don't know if you've ever seen or heard the Night Rangers, but he's the drummer for that band, and my drums started that whole thing. It got him interested. So when Karen and I got married, Kelly came up and played CDs for for our wedding,
Oh, that's
not
nice.
like music, but uh, he wrote that song. If you ever heard Sister Christian,
Hmm.
he wrote that song, and it was a big hit for him. But he's still playing. That band's still playing.
Hmm.
So
Do you have time for some more questions still?
sure,
Uh,
sure.
what were some of the big technological changes in your lifetime, and any thoughts about them?
That's what caused me to be upset all day today. Um, what's kind of funny for me, the one that was so noticeable is when we were opening the territory down here, in my office was down in
Camarillo?
Camarillo. Jeez, say I'm talking too long, I'm losing it. I was on the road a lot. So when I was on the road, nobody could get in touch with me.
Hmm.
So if you remember back, this was early 80s. Um, car phones were popular. Car phones, were popping up everywhere. So I convinced our main office, that because we're the farthest away from the Sacramento region, down in Camarillo, that we should be able to put car phones in our company cars. And so after, and I told them all the reasons why. I said, when we're driving, because there would be nothing for me to have to drive from Camarillo all the way up to Bakersfield, or because we went to Bakersfield, cut over at Santa Santa Maria up there. And so anyway, they said, yeah. So I saw us go from pagers to car phones and now to cell phones. It we took we When we introduced our agents to computers, that's what Karen was doing. She was on the team that was when their computers were getting installed, they would call her team, and they'd come out and train them on all the stuff they have available on their computers. So it made a big impact on us. but I just have to laugh now. Cell phones, because I was all I ever wanted was a car phone. I just wanted to have a phone with me in my car so people could call me and I could call them. And Karen gets so mad and says, "Where's your phone?" I said, "It's in the car." My cell phone's still a car phone to me. And she gets so upset at that. But yeah, technology, it played a big role in the insurance and well, but all industries for crying out loud, you know. It was huge. If we wanted to check a file out in the field, we'd have to call our customer service line, tell them the policy number, and they would have to physically get up from their desk and walk over to these rows and rows and rows of 5-drawer file cabinets, find the file, pull it out, take it back to the desk, and then ask the agent, what is it you would like for us to do? Can you imagine when I was in the Pasadena region when they started installing the computers, when they took a whole fourth of the building, put glass all around it, air conditioned it, put all these big computers in there. It was just like amazing. And then how did this time go like that? And here we are with like our cell phones have more power than those computers did.
That's crazy. And with cell phones and computers, is it a lot easier to accomplish more in a shorter period of time
I think it is for some people. Yeah,
for
I
some?
can't never get them to work right. Of course, it couldn't be me.
Okay. Let's see. We're getting towards the end here. Do you have any favorite books or movies you've seen in your life?
I was thinking about that. Ironically, when I was in the Navy and I was aboard ship out at sea, we have little lockers. That's all you have for your clothes and whatever you have. And then on the locker door, most sailors had centerfolds out of Playboy. When you open mine, I had centerfold out of Arizona highways because I'm out here surrounded by water, and I like to go hiking and I like to do things outdoors. And so I've read a lot of John Steinbeck. That's one of the things I got involved in Steinbeck, and he wrote all about Northern California mostly, Cannery Row,
That's fun.
and then later on when I got married and started reading again, John Grisham, I really I got hooked on this stuff back in the beginning, and I was just checking. That guy has written a library for crying out loud. He's got to have written more books than just about any other author out there.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. John Grisham's one of my favorite authors, and I find one of the good things about getting old is you forget a book you maybe read 10 years or 15 years ago, and you can
Right.
reread it and enjoy it.
And as far as movies, um, believe it or not, I like that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh, huh.
I always got a kick out of that, the humor in it that went along with it. Like, who are those guys?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I like Polar Express.
Huh.
That's a kid's Christmas movie, but that movie kind of what I like about it is if you believe, and that's kind of what I was saying before in a different way, but you know, it's so gut wrenching to see these kids all of a sudden see the light, that it's possible.
Nice. If you had a choice of how you could be remembered, how would you like to be remembered?
I guess this may sound a little corny, but it would be that he made a difference.
Hmm.
Whether
Nice.
it made a difference while I was at the chamber, or did I know I made a difference at Allstate because went national. And yeah,
I'm sure you have made a difference. Do you have any photos or memorabilia you want to sh hold up to the camera?
I don't.
Okay.
I was going to show you a photo, but when I put it up to this camera, it didn't look very.
Okay.
I can try to show it to you.
Is it handy? I'm
It's
curious.
just, I gotta get it out of my room. It's just,
Yeah, yeah, go for it. I'm
it's a
curious.
family photo, that's all.
Okay, I'm curious how well they show up on a Zoom call.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'll tell you my life story. Not really. No, we'll let Lynn get this photo and see how it reads on camera and what family members might be in it. It might be the glass, there's a reflection or something, but we'll see. And then I'm going to ask, is there anything else you'd like to say? And well, oh, look at that. Okay. Uh, I see that. Just hold it a little higher. Uh, okay, so I see you on the far left, Karen, and then who else is there?
Oh, that's my son. I forgot to tell you about my son. That's his wife, Chrissy. That's Jason works at for Apple,
Oh, huh.
and there's Lauren. That's her new husband, and that's my daughter who lives in Colorado Springs, and her husband.
Here, let me see the photo again. Yeah, just hold it still right
Trying
there.
to,
Okay, well, very good.
yeah.
We saw that read pretty well. And Lynn, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, but I just like to thank you, Larry. It's funny because my daughter who lives in Colorado Springs gave me this book and a tape recorder. She says, Dad, could you tell us a little bit about your life? And it's funny. And I was talking to Karen about it. She said, or somebody about it. And they said, well, Larry is doing something like that. So, so
Is it easier having someone ask you the questions than have a book to fill out or something?
I like the questions.
Okay.
I mean, I, I would just, even if I had a book, I don't know. I got to do something. That's what, that's all there is to it. Because she took the time to do it. But I already had volunteers saying, okay, we'll type if you just dictate what you want to say.
Okay.
I, I'm just not, well, I'm not as steady as I used to be.
Okay. You seem fairly steady. Well, this has been great talking with you, Lynn. You've always been a very kind, intelligent person when I see you around town, and Carpinteria and the rest of the world is lucky to have you.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, I enjoyed working with you over the years, whatever, a little bit and what we have done.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Lynn. And may I share this video with others?
Sure.
Great. Okay, well, anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well, great talking with you, Lynn, and I'll see you
Okay.
around town.
Okay.